Thanks, Christoph. Yeah, we're keen on looking forward where Rust will go in AutoSAR. But what about IVC, about in-vehicle communication? Well, I'm the speaker of IVC, and let's jump right into it. We start with the first slide with SumIP, where I have quite happy news for you that we have now a fully reworked message validation and error handling diagram in the SumIP protocol. Basically, the error handling diagram is now quite larger than before, and now in each step also references existing protocol specification. The good news here for you is that we kept changes to the existing specification to an absolute minimum. So there you have it. Since it's such good news, I'd like to repeat it. We now have fully revised the whole message validation and error handling diagram of the SumIP protocol document, and all steps include references to existing specification items, and changes to the specification were kept to an absolute minimum. All right. With this, let's get to the next slide for SumIP, where we now can probably present new default values in the SumIP protocol. Those rely on the existing configuration parameters for SumIP, like alignment, byte order, or size of length field. And these now have been harmonized as abstract protocol parameters with their complementary default values here that you see on the right-hand side. So if not otherwise configured, those default values that you see here will be assumed. We have more parameters to follow. And basically, here you have it. I give it to in short, abstract protocol parameters with default values in the SumIP protocol, and also the adaptive and classic platform documents reference these default values. Okay, now that's not all for SumIP. Let's get to the next slide for SumIP, which is the minimum send interval introduced for methods, events, and fields. And the minimum send interval is basically for adaptive, also now available for adaptive, the minimum amount of time between two transmission requests from an adaptive application towards the Aracom middleware. And if this minimum send interval time between the two transmission requests has not yet expired, basically a request by the application is dropped by the middleware. However, an error is returned to the application, which leaves basically the error handling, like buffering of the data or implementing rather last is best strategy towards the application side. All right, quite a fast forward, but we're not yet finished. So rather from SumIP, we're now going towards the collaboration of IVC with other working groups, for example, with the working group safety together in the topic of E2E. So let's go to the E2E slide here, where we basically for adaptive added here E2E support for methods, now also for fire and forget methods, and also now E2E protection for Aracom fields. Not that spectacular, say. Yeah, well, we had very intensive discussions because there's also the classic platform side where we come to the next slide here. Where we basically in the classic platform side, we have now a new message counter found in the E2E transformer, and also a new E2E library service for retrieving side request counter. Those were a lot of discussions, and there's more to come, so I don't want to go too much into detail here. So let's go to the next slide, where we also collaborate with the working group security, and we come to the MACsec part. And as you know, the MACsec support here was practically desired to be reworked, and this is what we did this release. And here you see the R25-11 MACsec support here with changes marked for the R25-11 side. What basically happened is that we moved configuration parameters from the MKA module towards the Ethernet drivers, namely set VLAN config, set key, and set bypass rule. But we also added then detailed API handling between the Ethernet interface and the driver layers, so namely the controller, transceiver, and the switch. Here we added proper description of MACsec initialization, maintaining, and shutdown of the MACsec protected hardware entity. All right. those were not all changes. The next changes come in the next slide, where you see the current view of how MACsec is supported here. And basically what we've further changed here is that we now have also communication between the MKA module and the LSTU router. Then we have now also forwarding of link state changes in the Ethernet interface. Then we now have also have MACsec support for the Ethernet controller. And we did a lot of changes also to the MKA module, where we introduced retry handling for API calls, have now detailed key handling and clarified the MKA sequence between the key server and peer, and also clarified in MKA the key handling with respect to the optional hash values. All right. So there's more to come. Yeah, there's also more introduced in 25-11. For example, I only want to mention here the COM handler concept. But for now, I think I should hand over to Steffen, who is keen to talk about the CAPI, the Common Adaptive Platform implementation. And therefore, thank you for your attention and until next time.